Vida Goldstein is one of Australia's forgotten heroes who is most deserving of having a stamp dedicated to her and her accomplishments. Her actions had a significant impact on society in the late 1800s and early 20th century, while also influencing what Australian society is like today. Vida Goldstein was born on April 13, 1869, to Jacob and Isabella Goldstein in Portland, Victoria. She was the eldest of 5 children, with 3 sisters and 1 brother. Vida and her family moved to Melbourne in 1877, where she and her sisters attended Presbyterian Ladies' College. Vida's mother was a feminist, whereas her father was strongly opposed to suffragists, although he did want his daughters to become strong, independent women. She began her public career when she started helping her mother gain signatures for a women's suffrage petition. From then on, she became deeply involved in numerous social welfare groups and fought vigorously for women's suffrage. She made her first public speech after becoming the leader of a radical women's movement, where she spoke in favour of women's votes. Vida travelled to America, where she attended conferences and promoted women's suffrage. An excerpt of the Sydney Morning Herald from Monday, the 18th of August 1902 said, "Miss Vida Goldstein returned from a tour through America, where she represented the women of Australia and New Zealand at the first International Women's Conference held in Washington last February. I was the only Australian representative at the conference," said Miss Goldstein. "I spoke for all the societies throughout the Commonwealth and New Zealand and presented reports about the educational, social, legal, industrial, and political status of women in these countries. This fight for social reform is one of the many reasons Vida Goldstein should have the honour of appearing on an Australian postage stamp." In 1902, women had been granted the right to vote, and upon her return to Australia, Vida was one of 4 women selected to run for a seat in Parliament. She did not gain a seat, and though she campaigned for a parliamentary seat many times after, she was never elected. Over the years, Vida founded and supported many women's organisations and found other ways to endorse women's rights. She owned newspapers in which she wrote articles advocating for women's rights, and during World War I established the Women's Peace Army. Vida attended a Women's Peace Conference in Zurich, where she represented Australia and was gone for 3 years. After this, she spent her time supporting more general causes, such as pacifism, rather than feminism and women's suffrage. Although she was no longer in the public eye, she continued to fight for social reform. Vida died of breast cancer on August 15, 1949, in South Yarra, Melbourne, where she lived with 2 of her sisters. This stamp shows the impact Vida Goldstein had on society. It displays a few of the things she created to help bring awareness to feminism, women's suffrage, and to promote peace. These magazines and flyers allowed important messages to reach people who wouldn't otherwise hear about it. Vida Goldstein had a significant impact on society. She helped to bring about changes in Australia, such as giving women the right to vote and hold a seat in Parliament. She helped provide women with many political rights, as it was her movements, campaigns and petitions which led to these rights being granted. She wrote an article in her newspaper about the cost of the barest necessities a person and their family need to survive. This had a huge influence on the development of basic wages. Vida also promoted peace during World War I, even creating a society dedicated to doing whatever they could to help those soldiers who were fighting, as well as encouraging people to find a more diplomatic and less violent way rather than resorting to war. Not only did she have an impact during her lifetime, but the results of her life's work also had an influence on today's society. Without her hard-fought accomplishments to do with women's rights, women's suffrage, peace and basic wages, many things would be very different today. It is for these reasons that Vida Goldstein, one of Australia's forgotten heroes and her accomplishments, should be commemorated on a postage stamp.